We are running out of time to save the US economy. The next stimulus package being proposed is completely missing the target. And even as another check is coming to you, hopefully soon, it could be too little, too late for most people. Now, in this video, I'm going to tell you what you need to know about the coming stimulus. I'm going to explain what's missing, what's wrong, and I'm going to give you my suggestion of how it should be done to benefit the most people. So stay tuned. All right, welcome back. If you're new to the channel, my name is Mark Moss. Now look, I believe that the only security we have in life is for us to take responsibility for ourselves because the system's broken. No one is coming to save you, and this is why we must learn to make money, grow our money, and protect our money on our own. Now, if you agree and you want to hear more about these topics, click the like button right now so more people see this video and hear those same topics. Let's help other people. Now, if you want to hear more, click on the subscribe button, hit the bell notification so you're notified every single time I put new videos out. Now, today we are talking about the economy. Mostly we talk about making money, growing money, having success. We talk about the markets, but today we're talking about the economy. Now, if you've been watching these videos, you know that I continue to say I believe that the markets and the economy are completely disconnected. They're completely broken. They're not connected at all. Of course, the economy, it's not moving. We have shutdowns all over the place. No one's working, no one's making any money, and there's no end in sight. But even while that's happening, the markets continue to go higher and higher, breaking new all-time highs. Now, if you're an investor, great. But if you're not an investor, do you even care? Does the average person care, right? Now, as an active investor, I've been benefiting. Now, I talk about investments, so hopefully a lot of you have been benefiting from this as well, but I know it's not the same for everybody, okay? I know there's 50 million people out of work right now. I know there's another 50 million people that are barely working at all. Super tough for a lot of people. And yes, we've already had some stimulus, okay, but did it help? Did it help enough? And while we have a new stimulus bill on the verge of being approved right now, the Dems, the Republicans, they're fighting over it. In my opinion, it's some kind of insignificant things. Now, for example, Republicans want to drop the extra $600 down to like $400, maybe even $200, but they want to increase the ages of dependents so more people get the money. Now, it's a lot to go through, but in my opinion, and according to expert Mark Mazur, the director at the Urban Brookings Tax Policy Center, he said, when it comes to $1,200 versus $1,000 for stimulus checks or $600 versus $200 in expanded federal unemployment benefits, the issues are connected. There's a whole bunch of different approaches, but they overlap a lot, he said. It's all the same parts. It's just a matter of figuring out what the dollars are for, each one of those parts. So basically what he's saying is it's like give and take. Like, okay, take a little bit here, give a little bit back there, and they're arguing back and forth. But the bad news for everyone else is they're arguing so long and they're not getting this passed, and they're holding back the payments from the people that need them most. Now, it looks like at this rate, the way they're going, it's probably going to be delayed all the way until September before you get a payment. But in my opinion, now, yes, I'm going to give you my opinion. Typically, if you watch these videos, you know I try to stick to facts, but I'm going to give you my opinions on this video because in my opinion, all of this, it all completely misses the entire point, all right? It skips over the issues that really need to be addressed. So here's the issue. This quarter, the economy is going to spend about 2 to 3 trillion less than what was expected. Now, GDP, gross domestic product, it's normally about $5 trillion a quarter. It's going to be about 2 trillion less this quarter because, of course, no consumer spending and all the other ways that it affects businesses, right? No income, no spending, etc. Now, this is already the worst recession in history. As a matter of fact, it's already a depression. Last quarter, we saw like a 35% drop. It's the worst drop we've ever seen in history. I mean, it smashes any other record. And this is not the first time the government has actually created a recession. It is the first time in history the government has actually ordered us just to stay home and not work. Now, knowing why the stimulus was structured in such a way and understanding how it needs to be structured, it's useful if we want to figure out what's next and if we're okay. Now, these two questions, we don't currently know what the answer is, but the problem is if there's 2 trillion missing from the economy in a quarter, because the government forced the economy into a depression, then the money is missing from the bottom up, okay? Not from the top down. It's the people that need their money back. And it starts, like I said, from the bottom up. Now, businesses were forced to shut down, which laid off workers. So at the bottom, it's the workers that had no money to spend. And of course, there was no businesses open, so they didn't have anywhere to spend that money on. The economy needs to get back on track. And so it's the people at the bottom that need to get the money to spend it back into the economy. Now, the last stimulus was like $2.2 trillion because that's how much the economists estimated the economy needed. They said, we're going to lose about $2 trillion, so let's replace the money that was lost and let's just spend $2 trillion. But that's not what happened, all right? Of the trillions of dollars that were given out, only about 220 billion was sent directly to consumers in the form of their stimulus checks. There was a few hundred billion that was also used for unemployment insurance, so that's good. So that went to the people, to the bottom, directly to workers, right? But there was another like 450 billion that was sent to PPP loans. Now, a lot of this did go to small businesses, and that's good, right? It goes to small businesses, mom and pops. It's supposed to rehire people, things like that. But the rest, it was sent out to large corporations. It was sent out to states. It was being used for other things like that. Now, some of them did go into PPP loans, but that money that going into PPP loans will probably not be seen in the economy maybe ever. Definitely not this quarter, maybe ever, maybe not this year. That money's probably sitting in bank accounts. It might be used to pay off loans, things like that. But at this point, all those things are unclear. All the money that went into the form of loans to large corporations, like I said, who knows what happened to it? Who knows if we'll ever see it back into the economy? It's definitely not getting back down to the bottom, to the workers. But in other words, it doesn't succeed in the goal of the stimulus, right? The goal of the stimulus was to replace the money taken out of the economy. Like I said, this would have been fine now. All this would have been fine now if the lockdowns had ended. We've been able to get back to work. But of course, that's not what happened. Now, before the pandemic, it's estimated that the average American couldn't even come up with $400 for an emergency expense. And small businesses aren't really doing much better. Most small businesses work like a month-to-month basis with no savings as well. So the stimulus package was supposed to help that, all right? It was supposed to help get back people money so they could get through until things started going again. But of course, like I said, things haven't started going again. And at this point, there's really no end in sight. We don't know if they will. Now, this brings us back to the new stimulus bill that they're working on, like I said, but in my opinion, it still misses the point. And that is, the point is, the only way to get money back into the economy is to spend it back into the economy. So look, the consumer accounts for about 70% of GDP spending. The other 30%, that's to build the things that the consumer needs. The money needs to go to the consumer, and then the consumer can spend it back into the economy, all right? If they give it to like a big corporation like an airline so they can keep their employees, how much is the employee really going to see? Why not just give it to the employee directly? Instead of giving money to the states because they lost out on tax revenue, why not give it to the consumer so they can spend it and then the states can get their tax revenue? By skipping the consumer and giving it directly to the corporations of the state, yeah, you're saving the corporations, you're saving the states, great. But the consumer gets completely left out of the equation. Consumers having the money and spending keeps the whole system alive, all right? States don't buy food. States don't rent apartments. States don't buy clothes. Consumers do. Always. It's always the consumers that spends the money, and that's a fact. Now, if you're worried about the states, you're worried about the corporations, great. Do it later. Make a separate bill that goes to save them. But right now we need to focus on the people that need it most. We need the money going to the consumer and let the money go from the bottom up. Today, there's about 50 million unemployed, another about 50 million that are suffering on top of that. I mean, we've seen huge rises in domestic abuse, child abuse, mental health concerns, suicide rates, all types of collateral fatalities from the shutdown, healthcare, all of that. I mean, this is a real emergency. This is no time for partisanship, no time for red versus blue, right versus left, no time Republicans versus Democrats. This is the time for consumers, and right now, the Democrats, they want to spend about $3 trillion. The Republicans, they want to spend about $1 trillion. So they're pretty far off. Between $1 to $3 trillion, it's a $2 trillion difference. It's pretty massive. Now, if you split the difference, it's $2 trillion. So let's see, let's do the math, right? There are about 330 million Americans, or about 150 million households in the US. So if you split the $2 trillion between the 330 million Americans, it comes out to about $6,000 for every single man, woman, and child. It's pretty good, much better than $1,200. Now, if you divide it between the households, it's about $13,333 per household. Pretty good. Now, this would replace the income that was lost, and most importantly, it would replace the spending that was lost. If you want to get money back in the economy, in my opinion, this is the way to go. It has to match the amount the shutdown costs the economy, right? You have to give the money directly to the exact people who spend it back into the economy, and that's the people. Now, if we can get all that money go directly to the consumers instead of just a one-time payment of $1,200, because that doesn't last very long, then we could see it working much, much better. Now, I have seen firsthand how this has affected people, how it's reached people. I work at a food shelter here in my local community, and I've seen the demand for assistance and for food has just continued to grow bigger and bigger and bigger. And it's not just homeless people. I mean, it's people that have had 2 incomes that are there waiting for help. Now, if we gave the $2 trillion just to the lower, let's say the bottom 100 million workers, and then we ranked it by pay, and then say divide it by like 6 months so it's spread out, that'd be about $20,000 per person, or about $3,300 per month. Boom. That is how we can fix it. We can put the spending back into the economy, get the money back into the economy through a massive spending program. And then companies, they're going to have to start working overtime just to match the demand of all this spending. We'll see more people hired immediately. We'll see the velocity of money start to go up. Basically money changing hands. If a newspaper guy spends $1 and then that guy spends $1 on coffee, that's $2 of GDP. That's velocity of money. When we have velocity of money, the states gain tax revenues because of the higher velocity of money than if you just gave it to the companies and they didn't do anything with it, all right? And that's it. That's what I got. That's what the next stimulus should be. Now, why only $2 trillion? Well, like I said, I split it between the 1 and the 3 that the Republicans and Democrats are arguing over right now. But the point is to replace the money that's lost. All right. Now, let me know what you think. Is this a better form of stimulus, giving it back to the bottom and letting it go up, spending it back into the economy? Let me know what you think. Leave me a comment down below. And actually, don't just tell me what you think. Tell your politicians, write letters, send emails, make phone calls. Let them know, because they don't know what you want unless you tell them. All right, that's what I got for you today. To your success. I'm out.